There's this really powerful verse that appears in the book of Romans in chapter 1 as Paul is writing to the churches there at Rome during the time of his ministry. And he reminds them of something very simple yet very powerful, and that is the power of the gospel. And Paul writes this, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first and also for the Greek." As we think about that verse for just a moment here, it's an opportunity to be reminded not only of the importance and the place and power of the gospel of Christ, but that it is where God has put his power to save mankind. And we can further develop this more because Paul does that throughout the book of Romans and say that it's not just about an eternal destination. We often think of salvation, we think of where we go when we pass from this life, and that obviously is eternally important. But everything that is phrased and everything that is pictured in this is also in our present life. In the book of Romans in chapter 5, Paul would talk about us not having strength, that we were without strength, that we were dead even in our trespasses. Also illuminate in Ephesians chapter 2 verse 1 the same idea. And that God died for us, Jesus died for us in due time. Later in that chapter, he talks about a very, very fundamental principle. That while we were dead in our trespasses, that is, while we served sin, death reigned in our lives. And that God has called us through this gospel onto life through righteousness. And then we get into Romans chapter 6 as he talks about us being buried with Christ as we were baptized, that we put away or put to death the old man, that the new man might rise in the likeness of Christ and might live after righteousness. Now, it's not the opportunity here to develop all of that, because this is just a short little devotional, and I hope that if you have more interest in these things, of course, we invite you to come join us at Three Forks as we study some of these things, or you can write me, and we'd be glad to discuss these things further. But it's just a reminder of how important the gospel is. So if you're out there and you're thinking, well, what can I do to impact this world? The most powerful thing at our disposal is the gospel of Christ. So what does that mean? It means that you and I should know what it is, that we should give our time and effort to knowing what the gospel of Christ is, as well as be willing to share it with others. And that's the most important thing, and that's the most powerful thing that we can give ourselves to in this life. Because as Paul said, it's the power of God unto salvation. And I hope that we also can say, just as Paul did, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. There are many people in this modern age, in this modern world, who are becoming increasingly ashamed of the gospel. I am not ashamed, because I know the difference it can make. I know the lives that can be changed. I've seen it. I've been blessed to see it. But I also trust the one who said it, and that is God himself, through his servant, Paul. I hope that you can be encouraged. I hope that you can be reminded of the importance of the gospel. And hope you take this time that if you have questions, if you've been searching, maybe you're watching this and you're in the moment of seeking out God, that you turn to those who could help you. And of course, if we can be of help to you, we really would encourage you to let us know. You can write me. My email is the letter N, sakula@live.com. And you can check out our website, threeforkscofc.org. Check us out on Facebook. Write me on Facebook. And we'd love to be able to sit down with you and study. But I hope that you'll take this moment of reflection, this moment of a little devotional here, and just remember the importance of the gospel of Christ. Make sure that you know what it is. Make sure that you've given yourself to knowing what it is. And when you do, I pray and I hope that you would join us as we share it with those we come in contact with.